Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and we are back. Took a little bit of a vacation, got a little bit of the sickness, but we are back ready to preview Niners versus the Houston Texans and what should be, at least in my opinion, a dogfight into the end. It's a game I think almost every Niner fan had circled on the schedules coming in to the season. It's a game I can't wait to watch this Sunday because San Francisco walks in 5-2, a loss against the Buccaneers, an immediate bounce back in prime time against the Falcons, had one of their best games of the season despite the injuries that they have. Meanwhile, the Houston Texans, couple of big wins in a row, have a bye week. Then they lose in prime time against the Seattle Seahawks this past week, and they're coming together this Sunday in the Midwest in Houston, Texas for a massive showdown. It's Niners, Texans, it's Shanahan and DeMeco Ryans. There are so many familiar faces on both sides of the aisle for these teams. Jimmie Ward's not playing this Sunday, but he's on the Texans. Azeez Al Shaair is the Houston Texans' top linebacker. There's many other names, of course, that are shared between these two teams as well. It's the first time we get to see Shanahan and Ryans go head-to-head since DeMeco Ryans' departure after 2022, and it should be a really good game between these two franchises. And really, both these teams are headed, or at least seemingly headed in different directions, right? San Francisco being 5-2, they have injuries, they have their own issues, but they seem to have things put together. Really good coaching staff, a really well-coached team that is prepared for almost any circumstance or scenario they'll face. Meanwhile, the Houston Texans are kind of not just trending downward, they're not a good coach team. Now, DeMeco Ryans is great, but they have a brand new offensive coordinator. They're still trying to figure out who they are offensively, whereas San Francisco does know who they are, very confident in who they are, and that I think has been a big reason they've won 5 games this season, whereas the Houston Texans have only won 2. And those 2 games were against the Titans and the Ravens, who didn't have Lamar Jackson playing and are banged up on defense. So these are 2 teams that are very different, but have a lot of similarities. And today we're going to get into how San Francisco can exploit a really good Houston Texans defense, but also why the Texans may give San Francisco some fits and could potentially win this game on Sunday and upset San Francisco out there in the Midwest. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, though. I apologize for being gone for a little bit over a week, but we're back ready to go, so be locked in as this 2025 season continues. And don't forget to use our promo code 49ers Access, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Okay, to start things off today with the show itself, I want to talk about the Houston Texans offense because it's a mess. It's a complete and utter disaster out there in Houston. So much hope. Excuse me. So much hope. So much optimism. You have C.J. Stroud. You have Nico Collins. You have other guys in the building, but it's a mess. They're not playing good offensively. They can't run the football. The offensive line is just atrocious. As you can hear, I'm still sick, and see I'm still sick. But I'm doing content for you out there listening. The one person watching live, Kenny, I see you. I appreciate you out there. That said, the Texans are a joke offensively. They fired Bobby Slowick. They brought in a new guy named Colley, and they're just kind of a head case. They don't really have a plan offensively. They're still trying to figure each other out. I don't think Colley believes Stroud is 100% integrated into his scheme, and I don't think Stroud fully trusts Colley just yet. And this Sunday, they're probably not going to have Nico Collins or Christian Kirk. They already don't have Tank Dell. Joe Mixon hasn't played a single game this year, so it's a really hindered offense that is poorly coached and unprepared. That should help San Francisco a ton. Right now, the Houston Texans rank 23rd in total yards per game. Outside of that amazing 44-point game against the Ravens, which again is a clear outlier for them this season, they're averaging under 17 points per game, which would rank somewhere around 29th in the entire league. The offense also ranks 31st with a 30.6% third down conversion rate. Again, they're not good. It's a really, really shoddy offense out there with the Texans. And for what they thought it would be, they may be having one of the biggest letdowns thus far this season. Now, there's still hope that as the year progresses, that maybe they can find themselves and things start to click. However, this is week 8. It's pretty much, or kind of close to the midway point of the season. This is in some form or fashion a playoff scenario for Houston. You cannot fall to 2-5 and expect to go to the playoffs. And if they lose this game, they're in a kind of disaster mode. What do you do? But if you win this game and you fight for survival and you can be 3-4, it looks much better on your resume. So I do think that the Texans offensively, offensively can give San Francisco some fits, but it's going to take a lot. Like, things are going to have to drastically change for the Texans to make a push in this game. Kenny 49ers on YouTube says, I still pick the Texans because this is exactly the kind of game San Francisco likes to give away. We have no offensive line. They have a pass rush. I pray Mac Jones doesn't throw 2 INTs. What you're saying about the Texans defense we'll get to, because they are tremendous, top 5, top 10 in football. They're awesome this season. That is maybe one of the most well-coached sides of the football in the entire NFL. But focusing on the Texans offense right now, because it is really bad. It's not just the coaching. It's not just the injuries. While all that, yes, should be taken into account, excuse me, C.J. Stroud has been very erratic this year. With the accuracy, yes, but also the footwork has been all over the place. And you've seen his completion rate drop because of that. You've seen some throws that he would normally make 2 years ago or even last year, he's missing. And you've seen his play grow rather inconsistent despite an amazing rookie season and really a year last year we kind of all said, you know what, like, he should be better, and the team kind of let him down. But he's been kind of hit or miss this year. But it doesn't help the fact that they have no rhythm on offense. They can't run the football whatsoever. They can't get their quarterback into more manageable situations. They can't get themselves into more, 3rd and 2s and 3rd and shorts. They're constantly in 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 8s, and they've done an okay job at managing those. But offensively, they're just kind of in disarray, where even if you watch the game against the Seahawks on Monday Night Football last week, they're at the goal line. And you think, okay, well, you can't run the football very well. You run it once or twice. You put yourself in a spot where you at least put the ball in your quarterback's hands on 3rd down and give your offensive line a chance to push the ball in with the running backs on 1st and 2nd down. Like, you're in a good spot. What do? Pass, 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 pass. They get a field goal or they don't score. So it's kind of all over the place right now with the Houston Texans, but they can't run the football. And outside of that game against the Ravens, which again, I mean, that really feels like when they scored 44 points, like a dam broke. They got overconfident, walked into the bye week and said, we figured things out. And they clearly did not figure anything out, because throughout the entire year, the Texans are averaging 3.6 yards per carry. That would rank 30th in football if you remove the Ravens game from consideration here. And they've only surpassed 100 rushing yards one time, and they've only scored 3 rushing touchdowns all season. We talked about the Niners' rushing woes. The Texans equally have, if not way worse rushing woes, very equal problems in running the football as the San Francisco 49ers do. And then you add in, you're not going to have Nico Collins and you're not going to have Christian Kirk. Stroud's throwing to rookies Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, and a third-round pro or third-year pro in Xavier Hutchinson, who's only caught 33 career passes. Like, it's not really setting up or not in favor of the Houston Texans in this one. And I think that's kind of been where they've been at all year. This guy's out and that guy's out. The offensive line's terrible. The quarterback's not playing great. The head coach or the play caller aren't doing their jobs either. Like, there is not this, rhythmic functioning to the team. Whereas San Francisco, my goodness, San Francisco feels like they're running on all cylinders, that they are fluid, that the head coach and defensive coordinator are in lockstep. They know what they want to do. They're feeding off each other. That's not happening in Houston. Like, they are in a place where you can see the defense playing great, and it's been awesome this season for them, but the offense has been so bad, it's like dragging them down. It's like a big anchor for the Texans, where on paper you'd say, well, they're having a great year. The defense is playing the best in football, basically. Top 10 run defense, a pretty good secondary. They allowed only 88 points, the least amount of points through, 7 games for them. It's not bad. 6 games for them. Like, they're in a really good spot. But the offense has been so bad. It is this grabbing how great the defense has been, number one in football, basically, and dragging them down to a sub 500 record. That's how bad it's been. And look, guys have stepped up in a way offensively. Dalton Schultz looks pretty good this year. And I think losing Fred Warner will certainly hurt San Francisco to guarding Dalton Schultz. And, San Francisco's defense is young, and there is ways that the Houston Texans can beat this Niners defense, which I think surprised me a lot in how they performed against the Falcons. They just shut down Bijan Robinson, basically, outside of like one drive or two. Drake London, a big non-factor. Kyle Pitts wasn't a really big factor. Michael Penix, who had a good game the previous week, couldn't do jack squat against San Francisco's defense. They didn't have Bosa and Fred Warner and Bernardo Green and guys like that. So really impressed by those guys. And I expect Saleh's defense to play very similar to that game against the Falcons this Sunday against the Houston Texans, which there's been some questions as to if they're going to have their full secondary back in their arsenal. From what I understand, Bernardo Green practiced today and yesterday. He is going to play this Sunday. Upton Stout will also return this Sunday, and even Lenore, who has not practiced the last 2 days because of a quad injury. According to John Lynch, he's on track to play this Sunday. So San Francisco should truly have a lot of their, or if not their entire secondary back there guarding guys that are rookies like Nolan Higgins and younger dudes like Xavier Hutchinson. And it really shouldn't, I'm not scared of what the Houston Texans offense can do. I'm not worried about what the Houston Texans offense can do against San Francisco. However, there is one area I think every Niner fan would say, well, what about the pass rush, Sterling? Isn't that concerning? And I would say, yes, it is. I do think if they weren't playing the Texans and were playing, let's say, an average offense, I'd be much more concerned. If they were playing, let's say, a bad offense like the Texans, but a better coached offense, I'd also be concerned. However, this is a badly coached offense and a poor performing offense. Thus, I'm not overly concerned of San Francisco's pass rush being their Achilles heel. Is it a problem? Yes. No Nick Bosa. Now no Bryce Huff. How do you respond? And I would say, well, have you seen the Houston Texans offensive line? It's not just bad. It's historically terrible. They cannot function. They allowed 28 pressures to the Seattle Seahawks last week. And the Seahawks defense is good. They're good coached. They have good personnel. They don't have the one elite guy like a Fred Warner or Nick Bosa. So I can point to that game and I can say, well, if San Francisco has 13 pressures, if San Francisco has 15 pressures, that seems like a logical assumption that can happen. And when you look at the personnel the Texans offensive line has, excuse me, there's a pretty good indication that, you know, this should be not an easy outing for San Francisco's defensive line, because that's not fair to do to NFL offenses, but this should be one of the easier challenges they've had this season. And I see people in the chat here, Kenny and Johnny, saying the Texans' offensive line is worse than ours, and ours isn't that great. So that I would say you were 100% correct. And primarily the Houston Texans left tackle Ariante Ursary. They remade their entire offensive line during the offseason, right? They traded away Laramie Tunsil, their all-pro left tackle, to the Washington Commanders. And they said, look, we're going young, youth movement, get a bunch of offensive linemen in here, get a bunch of offensive weapons. We're going to have some fun offensively. And it's not worked out whatsoever. Ursary is terrible. 15 pressures allowed so far this year, 14 sacks. He has the 9th worst true pass set blocking grade amongst tackles with over 150 snaps. He's disgusting. On the left guard position, the Texans are, for whatever reason, rotating left guards, with Laken Tomlinson somehow still getting starting reps in 2025. Love myself some Laken Tomlinson. I enjoy the victory donuts once in a while, but it's 2025, not 2019 anymore. That doesn't make any sense. And they're rotating him with Juice Scruggs. Those guys have combined for 12 pressures allowed, 2 sacks, and a 46.9 pass blocking grade. They're bad. They're really, really, really bad. Like, disgustingly terrible. Then you add in, they don't have receivers they can trust. They can't run the football. And you have a sitting duck back there, quarterback like C.J. Stroud, saying, hey, I'm a good quarterback, but I don't have time to throw. I don't have weapons to get the football to. And even if we try, we can't run the football. It's a mess. Excuse me. It's a really big mess. Johnny says here, Sterling, Salah will have them coached up, ready to go. Texans appear to be without Collins and Christian Kirk. You're right, Johnny. You're not going to have their 2 best receivers in this game, at least against the Houston Texans offense. It really should be, the Niners really should be able to hold the Texans offense to under 20 points. That's just the way things should go. San Francisco's defense has played really good all year. They've had timely takeaways, timely turnovers forced. They've gotten timely sacks in most games this season. They know when to blitz. They're getting timely pressure. There's been some games like the Buccaneers game and the Jaguars game didn't happen, but primarily they're doing their job. And I think, my goodness. They've really struggled getting to the quarterback, though, without Nick Bosa. It's been, you may get 1 sack or 8 pressures per game, and that's not great, but it's that 1 sack and the 8 pressures where they're coming on 3rd down, or it's coming on 4th and 4 to win the game. But no Nick Bosa, no Bryce Huff. There is some uncertainty there as to who's going to be the guy to step up, because you love Micah Williams, but he's more of an inside rusher, isn't a true pass rusher. You like Samuel Kawanu, but he's more of a rotational guy, and those guys are probably going to start this Sunday, which makes the most sense because the only guys behind them are Robert Beal Jr., who is not that good, and Travis Gibson, who I like Travis Gibson, but there's a reason he was picking up Ubers 2 weeks ago. There's a reason Travis Gibson was a guy that didn't have a job, about 2 months ago, right? There's a reason he was available throughout the entire offseason and is on your practice squad again, which I like him a lot, but the odds are he's not going to be the biggest factor for you in this game. It's a weak group that will need some help. Hence why I think Robert Saleh is going to have to continue to dial up the blitz at the right time and put pressure on Stroud and the Texans' terrible offensive line, overwhelm the young quarterback, overwhelm a young offensive line out there in Houston. from the start. Give your linebackers and your secondary blitz packages to use to make up the difference, not having Huff or Nick Bosa. I do think, there's a lot of things that the Niners defense will struggle with overall without their star players, but Robert Saleh can make up the difference. Robert Saleh can truly be a difference maker from a coaching staff standpoint and has been so far. You watched the game against the Falcons last Sunday. It's 2nd and 9. Saleh brings the blitz. They force an incompletion via Chase Lucas, getting to Michael Penix. Leads a 3rd and 9. Then bing, bang, boom, they get the football back because of a punt, and they go in the game. So I do think that Saleh is a massive factor in this game, as he always is, but primarily generating pressure. Excuse me. And hoping to find some way to alleviate the pressure off of guys like Micah Williams, like Samuel Kawanu, young guys that you like a lot, guys you want in your rotation, but truly aren't difference makers just yet in their careers. And so I think having the blitz packages dialed up is certainly going to help them. And I think, as most quarterbacks, Stroud is not good under pressure, right? But if you dive into his statistics, it's not just under pressure. It's against the blitz. Stroud is the 5th lowest graded quarterback when under pressure this season. He also is the 9th lowest graded passer under pressure this season. Not great. But diving more into things, he's tied for the most turnover-worthy plays when under pressure this year and has the 6th highest turnover-worthy percentage when pressured. He's one of, if not the worst quarterbacks when pressured this season. And when you ramp up the blitzing statistics on him, minus the Ravens game, Stroud has a 65% completion rate, 321 yards, roughly 64 per game, 7 sacks, and 2 interceptions when blitzed this season. I think San Francisco's answer to not having their star edge rushers or pass rushers is to blitz C.J. Stroud with Chase Lucas, with Jair Brown, Jason Pinnock, Mustafa, Bethune, Winters, force him to make a play. And look, how do I word this? There's always going to be that kind of 15 play, test out, see what guys are going to do portion early in games in the first quarter primarily, where it's up to Saleh to essentially kind of test Stroud. Where is his soft spots? Where will he go? If I put Bethune over the A-gap, what is his response to that? If I blitz a linebacker, is he looking for shots downfield? Is he wanting to find guys in the flat? That way you can expose those things later in the game. I think for Saleh, you want to make Stroud as uneasy as possible early in the game so you can know his tells for later in the game. And it sounds easy. Obviously, it isn't that easy, but it sounds easy. But I think that might be the defensive strategy for San Francisco. Get him uneasy early, learn his tells, and expose him as the game goes on, because this game should be close. It's not going to be, 26-10 San Francisco. It's going to be a close game. I don't think that San Francisco has the dogs right now, at least, to beat anybody by, 14, 20 points, if you will. They are very hampered and hindered offense. No Pearsall, no Purdy, no Ayuk still. No Brendel, which could be a positive. Excuse me. I'm very sick, as you can see. But I do think that what is so infuriating for Texans fans is that you can see how bad your offense is playing. They're atrocious. You can see the ineptitude, the bad coaching, and all the stuff I'm laying out for you. However, that defense is playing so well. Lights out football. They want to thump, be physical, and they are going to keep the Houston Texans in this game. And the Texans fans are so furious because in their mind, they're wasting generational defensive play. from Derek Stingley, Al Shaair, Will Anderson, and Danielle Hunter are playing out of their mind right now off the edge. Like, they are the best edge tandem in football this year. And they're wasting it for a record of 2-4 because the offense can't pick up the pieces. The defense so far this year has allowed 14 points per game. That's excellent. And the fourth lowest yards, yet they're under 500. The offense is clearly the problem. The defense is holding good teams. Like, they held the Rams to 14 points. They held the Seahawks to 23, I think, points. That game should have been so worse because the Texans offense was putrid. And I think, we're going to see a high energy game with defenses flying around and making plays. And this really is a prove it game for the Houston Texans and DeMeco Ryans. They're playing for their playoff lives on Sunday in front of their home fans. You fall to 2-5, you start to look towards the draft. And they view this game as a, hey, if we can beat the San Francisco 49ers at home, and we can knock them down a peg, well, we are right back in the thick of things. We're 3-4 in a pretty bad division. The Colts are good. The Jaguars are okay, but it's right there for the taking, if you will, and if you can find your rhythm. And they view this as a prove-it game for them. This isn't just master and apprentice. It's Shanahan versus Ryans. It's Shanahan and Saleh versus Ryans, and each side who really respectively wants to stick it to each other. Of like, gotcha, and like, it's all love, but in reality, both these teams need a win. San Francisco has the Rams and the Seahawks on their heels, biting, trying to get to them, whereas the Texans are fighting for the playoff lives. So I think we're in for a great game. I think we're going to see, that this Niners offense is going to have their hands full on Sunday with a really good defense. And if there is a way San Francisco was to lose this game, it is because the offense doesn't come to play. And because, DeMeco Ryans' defense holds them to under 17 points, which they've done to even better offenses this season. Now, I can also argue that this is probably the best offense the Texans have played since week one. And week one's always tricky because it's week one of the NFL season. Really good teams lose and really bad teams win. And, it's kind of the first game and all that stuff. So I do think that the Niners, they're going to give the Texans probably the best test in a while. But in reality, this is probably San Francisco's biggest test in a while, at least on defense, in my opinion. And Strawberry says, is this live or pre-recorded? Strawberry, we're back. I'm sick, but we're back. We're back with the live shows heading in to week number 8. Happy you're here for us. Drop your questions down below in the YouTube chat, and I'll be sure to get to them, hopefully, if I can talk and don't cough the entire show. That said, let's discuss San Francisco's offense because they're not going to have Brock Purdy. They're not going to have Pearsall. No Jay Brendel. It'll be another Mac Jones outing. They're going to have George Kittle, thankfully, back for a second consecutive game, and Christian McCaffrey coming off of his best rushing performance really since 2023. That's how long it's been. Now, I truly think that Kittle and McCaffrey are the keys to victory. Those are the two guys you circle that you just kind of say, you have to be the reason we win. Mac Jones can give you some things. He's been really good in the absence of Purdy. He's played relatively, turnover-worthy less football. Not many turnovers in his game. There's been some blips here or there, but he's played, game manager-esque. He's made some good throws and kept you alive, and allowed his defense to do most of the heavy lifting for him, but it's worked out so far. And in a game like this, it's going to be very similar to that. It's National Tight Ends Day on Sunday, so watch out George Kittle. Watch out for that. But I do think that Kittle and McCaffrey are going to be the two biggest players in San Francisco's potential victory on Sunday. However, I don't think San Francisco is going to be able to continue their rushing success against the Houston Texans that they had against the Atlanta Falcons. They're not playing the Falcons' undersized defensive line that lost their starting linebacker to begin the game. It doesn't have the dogs to stuff anybody. In fact, the Falcons walked into that game with a bottom 5, I think, run defense in football. And it showed. Now, that said, San Francisco did some good things. Kittle back, it obviously helped them, but they're playing a more ferocious, bigger-bodied Texans defensive line that ranks inside the top 10 for run defensive defenses and can also plug some holes, that knows how to plug the A gap, that can plug the B gap, and all those things. So I do think that while it was good to see, the odds are it's not going to happen 2 weeks in a row. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but the reality would say probably not the case for San Francisco this Sunday. Thus, you'll see Christian McCaffrey going back to what he's done the whole year, being a wide receiver, being that explosive, kind of check down, underneath threat, keep drives alive, have, 10 catches, carry the ball 18, 20 times a game, and be this kind of overall impactful offensive weapon rather than just being a really good running back for San Francisco. The Texans linebackers so far this year, through all 3 of them, they are just above average in coverage this season, and all 3 of them have a missed tackle percentage above 10. So there is a good chance for Yak in this game. There is a good chance for McCaffrey, even Kittle, to expose a little bit of the Texans defense, which I think is going to be a big factor this Sunday. Another big part of this is the Texans love to run a ton of quarters coverage on defense. That means you're going to get guys in more isolated situations. You're going to have CMC and Kittle either against a linebacker or against a safety in coverage. And the advantage clearly goes to San Francisco in that case. Now, the Texans have really good safeties, mainly Jalen Petrie, who's been awesome this season for them. But their linebackers have left a lot to be desired in coverage. So I do think that San Francisco's pathway towards winning is very much towards isolating Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle against the Texans defense and hopefully exposing those linebackers in coverage. It also helps that Mac Jones and the Niners offensive line have done a really good job getting the ball out quick. And I think that you're going to see a version of Mac Jones that you haven't really seen since the Rams game, where it's all underneath passes, probably less attempts than 45 in that game, but I think it'll be, excuse me, it'll be underneath passes. It'll be a bunch of checkdowns, balls that are, 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, nothing too deep downfield. You'll see, more of a death by 1,000 cuts passing attack to avoid the Texans secondary that has 7 picks this year. But on top of that, really avoid Will Anderson and Dino Hunter, who have just been tremendous players for Houston this year off the edge. 60 combined pressures, 8 sacks, and 27.8% pass rush win rate. They rank 1st and 4th among starting edge rushers in football. That's how great they've been. I'm talking right into the mic so you can hear me clearly. That's how great they have been. The 1st and the 4th among starting edge rushers in football and pass rush win rate. Better than Jared Verse, Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa when he was healthy. They are simply the best when it comes to getting to the quarterback and winning their pass rushing snaps. They have been tremendous this year, and it's going to be the biggest test San Francisco has faced all season long. That's how good they've been. They've been insane this year. That ball has to be out quick in the flat to CMC, in the flat to Jennings and George Kittle. It has to be out fast, or those guys are going to wreak havoc all over San Francisco's offensive line. The tackles have played pretty well. Trent and McKivitz have played good. but it's about how can you avoid DeMeco Ryans, who loves to do stunts and all these things and free up guys. How can you make sure those guys don't have the impact? It's by getting the ball out quick, avoiding pressure, and really feeding Christian McCaffrey for as long as you can. Because if you can, you're going to have a lot of success. A lot of success will be because of Christian McCaffrey and Mac Jones getting the ball out quick and hopefully feeding CMC to really make, Will Anderson and Dale Hunter a non-factor in this one because they're monsters. They're monsters off the edge. They've been so good this year. You can't ignore it. They've been that good this season. Like, they are incredible. They've been so good this year. And it's so hard for me to even talk about it because I wish we had that. San Francisco should have that. San Francisco really, like, the biggest concern to me isn't the fact that, they don't have Pearsall and they don't have Purdy. No, it's because of how good the Texans' defense is. That's why I'm worried. If there is a concern, it's because the Houston Texans defense is so good that they can blow up any single play. They can make all of this go away. All the offensive success, all of it. All of it, all of it, all of it. We have a question here. Johnny says, are you worried about Christian McCaffrey's usage? The answer is, of course I am. Why wouldn't I be? But you don't have your guys. You got to feed Christian McCaffrey. So worried about it, yes, but you got to win now to win later. So I'm hoping that's the case. The last thing in my notes is really that. Not having Pearsall hurts against the Houston Texans, but I think they're going to have enough with Kendrick Bourne and DeMarcus Robinson and Juwan Jennings and George Kittle to hopefully win this game. And I think that while the Houston Texans have been susceptible to the outside pass and the cornerbacks haven't been great this year, that I do think that the Niners should have enough. They're a better coach team in a better coach situation. They're better on offense. Not a great defense compared to the Texans, but they have enough to get it done, in my opinion. So hopefully that can stay true. I think it can. And if it does, San Francisco should win this game. But I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be tough. This is a game I think comes down to one score again, as almost every single San Francisco win has this season. Thus why I think San Francisco, if they were to win this game, wins 23-17. So only a 6-point difference for San Francisco. I think that's what this game comes down to. I saw some comments here in the YouTube chat talking about more of the top saying 24-13 San Francisco. Johnny said 23-17. Yeah, that pretty much adds up. One score game, 23-17. Get out of Houston, hopefully with the win. And hopefully you get the dub, because I really, really, really think that San Francisco can't put up 30 points. They can't put up 26 points. I think it'll be a one-score game. You're going to once again thank God for Eddie Pinheiro, but hopefully it is another Rams-esque style win. Trust your young defense, but I do think it'll be a dogfight till the end. 23-17, I want to give the Texans offensive credit. I also want to give San Francisco's defensive credit, but I do think San Francisco wins 23-17, escape with the victory, and hopefully that continues this Sunday against the Houston Texans. Okay, I want to thank every single one of you here in the YouTube chat. Kyle Chipto, love that you're back here. Starberry Reacts, Johnny, thank you guys for joining the show. Kenny 49ers, you guys have been great. Live shows are back throughout the season. I am back from vacation and hopefully back for good. And hopefully you guys can stick around throughout the year. We're going to be back reacting to the Houston Texans' hopeful loss against your San Francisco 49ers after the game on Sunday. So come back for that one. Also, come back tonight. I'll be live with Larry Krueger discussing the game too after Thursday Night Football. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Drop your score predictions down below. And as always, my name is Sterling Bennett, picking the San Francisco 49ers to win 23-17 over the Houston Texans, week number 8. And as always, stay faithful.